Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of the Indie Show. Tonight we are talking Southern Bastards Volumes 1 and 2. We dove right into this one. Normally I just do a Volume 1, but everyone that had read this told me, you need to do both volumes at the same time. So we're going to do 2 volumes tonight. I have an excellent panel with me to discuss this, 2 of which had never read it before, like me. One has read it before, but first up, we're going to start with Lady Fantastic.
Never read it before until today.
She read it today. She was like reading through it.
Volumes 1 and 2. That's what that's the way I like to eat my words.
Just dive in.
I like a good binge. Yeah.
I read in over 2 nights. I read them back-to-back nights. One night, one the next night. But that was like Friday and Saturday, I think. So
cool.
So
yep.
Nice. So looking forward to this. Glad to finally have you on an indie show. We talked about it, so glad to make it happen. Somebody's been on a couple before. Mr. Justin, what's going on, man?
Yo, I heard that there were going to be some ribs in football here tonight, so that's why I came. I don't see the ribs anywhere.
All right. I think our last member of the panel was supposed to bring all of that stuff.
I hope
he read it before. He was supposed to supply all the food and everything.
I hope they did.
No. Let's see. There he is, Greg. What's going on?
Did you guys not get I emailed those ribs to you guys. I mailed them. Amazon must be dropping the ball. I made those ribs on Sunday night. They said 2-day delivery. You guys would have those ribs because my ribs were.
Ooh, what a guy! What a guy!
5 hours and then throw them on the grill.
I am sure they will be here any minute. I'm sure the doorbell. Somebody's gonna knock at the door any second.
And if they do, that's my ribs coming to you guys.
There you go.
All soggy and nasty. Nice. Yeah.
No. I put them in that like the pizza.
Oh
yeah.
It's good.
Good stuff.
I think the lady else like, I don't think so. She's not buying that. All right. Well, before we dig into this, let's shout out this chat because we got several people hanging out with us. Unruly Simeon was tailgating early. What's going on, Unruly? Luis Ramirez, what's going on? Lady Fantastic's in the chat also. GT Key Comic, what is happening? X11, what is going on? Unruly says it's been a while, but he has read these before.
Ooh.
Disobey Bear, nice to see you. The chat just leaped on me. Here we go. Oh, there's some John guy.
Does Disobey Bear have any relationship to Bear Island?
I don't know. I think that's a new name. I don't
or
recognize
Kurt Bear.
Welcome. Comics for Blame. What is going on? John says he's going to end some friendships if people didn't like this. So there you go. I think he's a big fan of this one. No Goods in hanging out in the chat. So is Bearded. Let's see. I think that's everybody so far. So excellent. All right. So first, 3 of us are first-time readers. We're going to let ladies go first. Carolyn, you literally just read these. Mm-hmm. What was your first impression of Southern Bastards?
Man, so it really resonated with me. It hit home. Aaron's such a great writer, and I mean, like, he got me woke with God of Thunder in a really great way with Thor, but this, man, it was like, so I grew up in a small town 30 miles south of Nashville, Tennessee. It happens to be the birthplace of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Our high school was named Forrest High School. Okay, the fatherlessness of these characters, because I mean, who do we have? We've got Euless, and the father. I mean, he asked his dad for a favor, the ultimate favor, right? He's a bastard. Okay, then you've got this guy Earl Tubbs. He didn't
get along with his dad either.
Yeah, his dad's dead. He's a bastard, and then his dad was never around. I think it's more metaphorical bastards. These are fatherless sons or fatherless children, because now you see that Roberta is also become a bastard. And
They're
so,
jumping right in here. I like it.
it's just this theme of no fathers, deep South, this very tribal, small mind think. And it's true. Some of these things, all these people live for, are homecoming, football, prescription pills, and fights.
No.
And it's tragic.
No.
But the story being told in this, it's like, you would say it's cartoonish. I swear to God, there are stories that I could tell you that have gone around that are not the same, but are just as outlandish. And that is the real deal. For instance, okay, I had a coach. Well, he was the soccer coach. You see in that book, that guy wears those old 80s shorts, like those bike shorts. Dude, Coach Hill, all legit. That's what he had.
Yeah.
He had a mustache. He dipped, and he would be like, "Wiser, what's wrong with you? Why you running so slow? You on your period?" Like, he would say that shit. That was literally what he said to me. Like, when we were running for soccer, like, here's the thing. He was so mean. So his first wife had left him. He was so mean, but he happened to have a son, James. He ordered a mail order bride from like fucking Latvia or who the fuck knows where. Okay. This is small town, dude. He was so mean to her. She left. Okay. She left him. And then mysteriously his house burned down so he could get some insurance. So it's just like, dude, these things are real.
Yeah.
There's gossip, and then there's these hints of truth, and like family names matter, and you will get branded by the legacy of people you don't even know that happen to share your surname. So this hit hard. And it strikes a really sad tone because, like, I think I told someone else that, like, you could easily define the psyche of the South as, like, sadness and rage.
No.
And I think since, like, the Civil War or whatever, there's been these deep, like, unmet psychic needs since like the slavery, dude. Like, we haven't healed that shit. And like, do you think any of these people that are in the South, do you think that like any government has actually helped them out? No. That's why they have so much contempt. That's why they say burn the fucking government down, because they've never been helped. And so they don't give a fuck. And it's just like that sadness and hopelessness. It's so real. Anyways.
No, I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Justin, now, I don't think you're a small town boy like originally. What do you think of this? And you're not really a Southerner either.
I was gonna say, certainly not from the South, and this was a certainly a different kind of world for me on what Jason Aaron has kind of built here as as you dive into it. And I know this was something that JP, you and I talked about for a while, where we wanted, this was on your list. You're like, we're going to do this show eventually. I think it was one of the initial first times that we were really talking about me coming on, and I'm like, oh, that for sure. I picked it out just because of Jason Aaron. I mean, that was my main whole reason. I didn't even do any research on the book beforehand. I literally was just like, I heard it's great. It's Jason Aaron. I love Thor, his Thor run. Like, I'm all about it, So that was my initial introduction to the book. I don't like to read like the previews or anything like that, or any information about a book, or I try not to. So I did just dive into this, had no idea what this was about at all. And, I make the jokes about ribs and football and stuff, but this was like a football, like mafia type of scenario, like the way that the kids kind of like had this guy's back, the boss, the coach, was like, oh my God, like some serious stuff. And, people owing money, and, I know we'll get into the details, but like, I didn't know what to get into. I didn't know what I was getting into. So this was definitely took me by surprise. And, but I loved this series so far. I know we're only in two trades in, but I am all for it. And I can't wait to read more, as we get through that. So, yeah.
Greg, this is you're revisiting. You've already read through what they've released, but you're revisiting Volume 2. If you can go back, what were your original thoughts?
So I did. I read this for the first time literally probably like 4 months ago. And I read volumes 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, don't worry, gang, I'm not going to spoil 3 or 4 for you. I actually, I reread volumes 1 and 2 just to have it fresh in my mind. And I think it's interesting because I grew up in the Midwest. So not South, but good golly.
You have your own. You have your own.
Yes. If people read this and go, there's no way this could happen in a town, they didn't never grew up in a small town. No. That's all I'm saying. Like, this resonated so well. Like, I went to a school where we literally, the entire town shut down for Friday night football. My teacher in high school was a science teacher, and he was also the head football coach. We literally, Monday through Thursday, we watched episodes of Bill Nye the Science Guy. And then on Friday, we watched game film of the team that was coming up. I'm not even joking you. This was my high school experience. We watched Bill Nye the Science Guy was my science teacher in 9th grade.
Honestly,
and then
that was probably to your like advantage.
Better that way.
I'm probably better. Yes, I'm probably better for it. But like, to literally get that, like that small town vibe. If you are a winning football coach in a small town, good golly, this is so true to the extent. Now, maybe not to the extent of like murder or things like that, but
you're a demigod.
Yes, you are. And I mean, the town shuts down. You can't do anything in that night. And Southern Bastards is if the movie Walking Tall and the movie Friday Night Lights had a baby and made a comic. If you don't know Walking Tall, at least you probably know the Rock remake. It was like a 1970s, but it's about a small town guy who ran against a local sheriff because he's like, my town is corrupt. This isn't the town I grew up in. I want to do this. And man, they remade that movie, and it then mixes it with Friday Night Lights. And just see that dynamic here. So I picked this up randomly at a half price book, so like issue 1, and I loved it. And it actually is really funny because in my channel, then like my wife and I there's a recipe in the back of volume 1 of the fried apple pies.
Yeah.
We did that for our second episode of our cooking show.
Nice.
And Jason Aaron Elise liked my tweet. I doubt he watched it, but he liked the tweet. So I'm like, I'm gonna count that as a victory.
Heck yeah.
So for me, like, I did not really know what I was getting into. I'm a big Jason Aaron fan. Like everyone else said, Thor was my gateway to Jason Aaron. He's actually local. I've met him a couple of times. Like, he's in Kansas City now, but originally from Alabama, which is
that's cool.
But for me, I graduated at the time, the largest graduating class in my school's history of 41. So that tells you the size of town I went to. We were so small, we didn't have football. Just replaced everything football with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, as you get more,
like literally, like as a junior and senior when I was playing all the time, I would just go at the start of the school day. Of course, I had good grades anyway, so the teachers didn't care. I would go down to the gym and shoot hoops all day. Like, I would just be in the gym all day and nobody cared. The like this resonates so much. Like, our athletic director and our high school principal, when I was in elementary school, because I love sports, used to come and get betting advice from me. Like, bet on football, it's like Super Bowl, other things. They used to get betting advice from me because they knew that like I was into sports and like it was a smart kid. Like, if you think this couldn't actually be a true story, you're crazy. Like, I mean, now is this more extreme than?
I mean, yeah, there's some like cartoonish to it,
but
a lot of it's based on truth.
Yeah, but the side of it's slightly exaggerated truth. The side of the coaches are gods in these towns and football players that are really good are gods.
And sheriffs, coaches and sheriffs.
Yeah,
and like
all of that.
And the preacher's kid's always a dick and the wildest one. Just that little fucking psychopath that's there that's like Coach Boss's like major crony.
So
you never trust a PK. Never trust a PK, lady.
Always. That's always the way it works. Is that like preachers' children's are they have no conscience.
Yeah. So before we dig into the details, I do want to say, like, Lady F asked me, she's like, when I asked her if she wanted to read this with us, because I thought of you, like, immediately when we were trying to decide who it was going to be. She's like, what, you think I'm a Southern bastard? And I was like, no, but I think you know a bunch. and so this probably hits too close to home for you, but, like, I knew you would have insight into this because, like me, you've met more than your share.
I'm like, man, I just have, like, crushing and bizarre stories, like, of just, like, how these people exist in this bubble, and it's just so tragic, dude.
Yeah.
It's so fucking, to me,
terrible. But
some of them are just, ignorance is bliss. And so I think a lot of them are really happy because they only have a bandwidth of, like, football, getting your hair did, and I don't know, decorating floats.
Right.
Like, and God, right? There's only that's it.
Yeah. It's like, you go back and it is exactly the same. And it's just like these people haven't. It's like, did you get any life experience at any point? And no. And then this bubble is, like, all they ever know and all they want to know.
And their kids go and do the same shit, and everybody knows their kids, and so you establish this line, oh, well, you're a Kincaid, or you're a Ledbetter, or you're a Brown, and it's like it's like, why they stay there, and, like, they just
If you were reading this comic book and you went back to your hometown and you didn't wear your Letterman's jacket when you visited, you don't understand the concept of this comic to the level that there is, because that's the type of people that they are, right? Like, they literally, these are the people, like, this is their world.
Well, their heyday of life was in high school.
Yeah.
So the way they flex is, oh, you were such and such's boy, and and that's it. Or you're the sheriff's son, or you're only associated by
your name,
by your kin. Yeah.
Yep.
Bearded, like, 30-year-olds coming to high school games wearing their letter jacket from 20 years ago or 15 years ago.
As hell.
Shit happens.
It happens, though. And that's what I like. You read this. I think if you honestly read this comic book and you say this fanaticism to a degree would never exist
over such banality.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's such minute detail, like, that doesn't matter, but, like, it does in these small towns. I mean, I'm 20 minutes away from one of the largest cities in Ohio, but I grew up in a small town, and this is the life that was. So it doesn't even separate, but it shows you, just like that shows you, even, like, from a political landscape of where we are at, of, like, just, like, what people are like. It's bananas of it happens, like, that the glory days are real, and it shows it in this book, and it's so well done, and it's also, like, a little frightening of how well it's done. Like, Jason Aaron definitely was writing from, like, some truth in his life. He had to grow up in a small town.
Jason Aaron grew up in one of these towns, for sure.
Yeah. He was speaking like those characters are real people that he's encountered, and he's given them different names. Yeah. Like, and he's just slightly changed something. And it's like
because to protect the not innocent.
I know the families, and I know the people where if you want to go home for the holidays and get a good bottle of moonshine, I know who and where you can go get the best moonshine from. And it's like, and I also know families that you just don't mess with because they're trouble. And and I also know families that think that they're hot shit and can do no wrong and are just pillars or whatever, but they have just as much scandal and madness as any other family. Like, it's sad. Yep. It's sad because it's so shallow, and, like, the meaninglessness of it.
Okay, So we spent a lot of time about just how much scary truth is in these. Let's actually kind of dig into the story a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically, volume 1 is we meet Earl Tubbs, whose uncle had the family property and is basically going to a home. And Earl is going back for the first time in forever to this small town that he grew up in, where his dad was a sheriff, and he's going back there for first time forever. Greg brought it up earlier that he had, or Lady F brought up earlier that he was basically a bastard. His dad was sheriff. His dad had died there. He had no interest in going back at all. Gonna get in, get out, and get sucked back into the small town bullshit that exists. So what do we think of Earl and the fact that, his journey here, how he gets sucked back into the politics of this small town? Let's start with Greg this time, because I made you go last time.
No, that's fine. I think again, I feel like I'm really excited to hear Justin's viewpoint, because Justin didn't grow up in this like small town that it sounds like the other three of us did. But it's so scary of like how real that is, of people that like move away from their small town. And again, like I said, I'm 20 minutes away, but like when I walk back like to that town, I guarantee you, if I'm going to one of the local shops, someone would still see me and be like, "Oh, you're Osborne's son. Like you are this kid's son." Like,
Yes.
Wow.
It's
I call it your sister or blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
like I knew your friend, I knew your dad, I knew your mom, like I knew your, and it's so
Dude, it's traumatizing.
it is. And so like Earl's mindset in this book of like he's got to go back, he's got to take care of his home life, he's got to deal with this property. It's something he doesn't want to do, but it's something that he does. He's like, I got to do this. And even in the midst of it, you see it throughout all volume 1. He gets sucked back into it, even though he absolutely wants nothing to do with it. And I think that's the mindset that like that community creates and it cultivates in those of it's so much a part of your legacy. It's hard to separate that.
No.
I can go back. I haven't been to my high school football game in my small hometown in 20 years, but I could go back and I could say the entire freaking chant of the, like our football rally cry. Like I know it through and through, and because it's so ingrained in your culture growing up, you can't separate those two. And so it's interesting. I think it's so cool to see how Jason Aaron takes this character and is like, he wanted to run away from his past so much. He wanted to leave this town, but literally the moment he stepped foot back into it, he couldn't leave it, right? Like a random stranger acknowledges who he is. Like, oh my gosh, I saw you. I knew you. I watched you play football. And
So then was he a stranger?
he wasn't a stranger, right? Like,
Right.
but that was like 20 years ago. And
Not
like
when you
his
learned the
comment of like, I even dated your sister. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a small town. Like the fact that like, and again, this is without like Facebook and MySpace and all those things that like, this is, you come back though, and it's there. And it's such an interesting take, because Earl Tubbs is a character that is trying to leave behind his miserable life that he had.
Yeah.
And he was a star football player, but his dad was the sheriff of the town, which again is something that you're a successful.
Branded with.
You are the sheriff. You're the kid of a sheriff. You're the kid of a preacher. Like you have some clout, and he wanted nothing to do with that.
Well, his dad also beat the crap out of him.
And his dad, and so you see that too, of like, you see this mythos of people too, like the football coach, the preacher, the, the sheriff, of like, these are pillars of our community, but behind the scenes, they were trash people.
Yeah.
And it's hard to separate that. So yeah, it was
Everything changes once you learn that too.
Yes.
You can never look at them the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you realize that as you get older, as a kid, you see things in a certain light. And as you get older, you realize, Jesus, these people are not just as fallible as I am. They in some cases, they're worse. In some cases, they're total pieces of shit. Yeah. So it's like, I did know. I was onto something.
Yeah. So, Justin, because, like, the three of us could probably talk about this forever.
My mind's blown right now.
What were your thoughts about Earl and how he got sucked back into this, and like just his journey here? What did you think about this?
So like everything you guys are talking about right now is very I have never had exposure to in any sense of that. Other than, movies or whatever that has been shown in the past. So this is definitely the way I kind of took this story, I think, is a lot different than what you all have taken it as. And you've definitely kind of opened things up for me in terms of just getting a better understanding of kind of what these characters, where their minds are, or, like what the expectations are, and really how meaningful certain things are that we run into in the book that I don't think I really connected with, reading it through this first time around. So it is really interesting just hearing you guys talk and explain some of this stuff. It is so new to me in a sense. Like it is hard for me to necessarily wrap my head around how big of a deal you guys are expressing certain aspects of things. And I mean, I know football is big in the South and things like that, but again, nothing like as much as you guys are explaining things here now. So, going back to like Earl, a part of me was just kind of like, all right, like if you don't want to be part of the city, like don't, or part of the town, just like leave, do your thing and leave. Like why would it be so hard? And I get like you kind of start to understand that he knows some people, they recognize him, but it just didn't click for me in the same way that you guys are kind of explaining this now, which again certainly makes more sense. And I kind of have, I'm just thinking about all the different things now and how I view it. It's just very different. So it's interesting. So I'm interested to hear more of what you guys are saying, because it's like I'm very new to it.
It's this weird thing, dichotomy, before I go to Lady F, is like I could, if you ask me, I'm like, I could give a what about my hometown, and yet I do. And that's kind of like where Earl is. He doesn't, like, he wanted out, he doesn't want to go back, but the moment he's there, he knows all these people. He still cares about what happens to him, even though he doesn't want to. And like, it just, it's so weird. And, I love how he's talking to that guy, and that guy tells him like, oh, I'm glad to see you're doing well. Now get the heck out of here as fast as you can. And yet,
right,
he's like warning him, go.
Yeah.
Like, why are you coming back?
You escaped once.
Well, and that shows that like real bonds were actually formed.
Yeah.
And like they were community bonds. And as a kid, I mean, everybody needs that. It's part of a nurturing environment. It just, you don't realize how toxic it can get as you grow up and become an adult, because you start to see the underbelly of not branching out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in the South, that, I mean, like I said, you mix unmet, like, psychological and social, economic needs for the major populace of the people in the South for decades upon decades, and you see how hopeless and sad these groups of people become, and what they cling to just to I don't know what they cling to keep their minds off of how tragic some things are. But in the same way, it's like, should I actually be that judgmental, because a lot of them seem really fucking happy doing it. So it's like, I don't know, because all those cheerleaders, and there are certain people in these towns that just, they thrive off of this shit, or it seems like they are. I don't know if they really are.
It's the bubble that they've created, that they feel like this is the pinnacle of what they have, and it's so accurately displayed because of the characters are literally petrified. And we'll get to to other stuff, but like they're petrified to do anything against the football coach because the football coach has won 5 state championships. Like
Coach boss.
And he's a god to them. And it's like, it's insane.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing worse than the hometown kid that comes back as the coach. Like, that was a player, whether they be a star player, or in his case, like an underappreciated or whatever, like that comes back, not just that goes to the 2 towns over and becomes a coach, but actually comes home and becomes a coach. Those are the worst.
Oh my God, I know. There's one at mine. Okay, gosh, dude. Okay, here's at my high school right now. There's a dude that used to play football there. That is the coach there now. They worship him and think he's God's gift to that town. And then there's this teacher I couldn't stand. She was like she was a cheerleading squad lady. She was the student council coordinator lady, and then and then she taught some joke class like economics or something. And all she did with student council or whatever, and the cheerleaders, she would just make them bake shit for the teachers. Oh, we're doing this, teachers appreciate you. They would just, that's what we did. Make the teachers shit because you guys don't show the teachers appreciation enough. And it was so selfish. And it's just like, her son now, who was a football player, teaches economics at that damn school, and they have the same fat butt, and it's just like, man, it's tragic.
By the way, I'm so glad that Lady F is on this show with us.
I didn't know what this was real. I mean, I knew what this was about, but I didn't know what this was about when I asked her. But she said, she was like, "What, you think I won?" I'm like, "No, I think you know a bunch." That's why. And she's probably cursing me for making her read this.
Yeah. And so Earl, he is this guy that has to come back, clean up, whatever. His uncle he's older, has to go to an assisted living home and can no longer care for this big house that he used to live in. And that was, incidentally enough, the same house that Earl grew up in. And so he's seeing all these flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
But then, we mentioned he leaves to escape, right? Because he clearly had a violent childhood, but he escapes to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Is that a better choice?
Yeah.
No.
And so, but then he's gone to Birmingham to live. And so he comes back, and we learn the story of him because he's on a mobile phone, and he's basically sort of relaying, all right, well, this has happened, so I'm having to head here. I'm probably have to be 3 days, but I'm hoping to get this and this knocked out. Hope you're doing well. Talk to you later. And so, as the thing progresses, you see him on the phone kind of saying, here's the things that have happened. Okay. But his dad, a sheriff, was known for being a hard ass, apparently. And he had this bat. Okay. And people had signed the bat. And, they love Bear Bryant down there because Roll Tide Roll, right?
Oh, yeah.
Coach for the football team. And,
they
still
worship Bear.
Yeah, the Bear.
Still worship Nick Saban right now?
Right. And so
Bear Island.
Right. And so one of the guys, were referencing this Earl's father or whatever, and he was like, didn't Bear sign it? I heard that, But apparently this bat was hard as hell. Okay. And, it just knocked some skulls apparently as Earl Tubbs having flashbacks of watching his father beat down some dudes that that came to beat him up, whatever. Right. Well, now Earl's come back, 20 to 40 years later? I can't remember what it said.
It's a long time.
And he looks at his father's grave, and there's this little nerdy kid that comes around, just kind of goofy. And the goofy kid is he's hanging off of there's a tree behind his father's grave. Okay. And the goofy kid was like, "What are you doing around here? Who are you?" And he was like, "Well, this is my house, and I'm here, and this was my dad or whatever." He's like, "But you didn't even know your dad, like, he was like, and then the guy's like, "Why is there a tree at my dad's, like grave or
Great.
whatever?"
Yeah.
I can't remember if this boy or the guy, but he's like, he was buried with his bat. And so this really hard bat, this piece of wood that beat the snot out of people some 40 years ago. Okay. Now there's a tree there. And so the assumption is that this tree is of the same, strength of this bat. And so because of this memory, it's really like Earl hates the sight of this tree because it represents this violence that his father had like inflicted. And so he gets pissed and he like tries to hit it down with an axe, and like he can't because it's really tough.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And he gets frustrated. He curses the gods. And I think at some point later, lightning strikes.
Oh yeah. And he ends up.
And when that lightning strikes, a bit of that tree pops off in the likeness of a baseball bat. And he says, and Dad, I don't want to be like you. I never wanted to be like you. No. But if I need to go like knock some heads.
Yep.
Well, and so he makes his own bat.
And I said it before, it was like this comic is like if Walking Tall movie and Friday Night Lights had a baby. Because if you've watched Walking Tall, if you haven't, you can watch it on Peacock, at least the Rock version with Johnny Knoxville. Yeah. He's about to go in like and wreck this casino, and he has a shotgun, and he's like, "No, I'm gonna get charged if I go in with a gun." So he takes a 2x4 just like this and just runs havoc on the town. And then when he becomes sheriff, spoiler alert in the movie, he puts the 2x4 on his like shotgun shelf in the truck, like. And it's the idea of the fact of like the wood is this representation of like who he is, and Earl Tubbs is the son of the sheriff is like, I don't want this.
I forget what his dad's name. I mean, I forget what his dad's first name is now. But
Bert.
Yeah,
Bert.
Oh, it was Bert. Okay, yeah. So
also. Randomly not anything of it. By the way, JP, I love the Stray Dogs issue 1 Silence of the Lambs behind you. I just noticed that. So
that was earlier today. That was my AOK from Unruly was those 2 books.
It's a beautiful book. So and I see the something's going. So
So like the thing I love about this is Earl like hated his dad. Like he like left home because like Lady O says because he was beat as a kid. His dad was a hard ass, abused his son, was a hard ass on everybody. But he very much is his father's son. His father was also a sheriff, and even though he was like violent, he like probably instilled a strong sense of right and wrong that he didn't really follow in the treatment of his son. But like, and Earl comes back and he sees these people are basically being run roughshod over, and he just can't help himself. He's been a soldier. He's raised by a sheriff. He cannot help himself. He has to get involved, even though the whole time he's cursing himself for doing it. And and he like it's. I just find it so like so much. There's so much truth in this book that it just like kills me. That like this guy. This is all very too real in some ways. And just like the cronies, like the assistant coaches and the cronies of the coach, and oh my gosh, I know
they used to be former players, just want to relive their
the worst.
Days.
Oh my gosh, they're the worst. It's not the bully. The bully's never like the bully's always bad. But it's the cronies. The cronies are always the worst. They're just
and so they all like tough. They all put their when they go into like assault people, they'll go in like groups and put their little old football helmets on.
Football helmets on and
just beat the snot out of people.
Oh, ridiculous.
Oh, and I think what triggered the Earl really was so there's that little kid that I told you that talked to him, and like he said that, you know, hey, your uncle used to let me come over and watch TV because we don't have one because mom says the devil's in there or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, just old typical shit crap.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, well, and apparently that kid had so Earl's like, no, you can't come here and watch TV. I'm sorry, you know, but these coaches' cronies come looking after Earl because Earl stuck up for this deadbeat that they were coming after because he owed Coach Boss money. And they find this kid. So these big punks find this kid watching TV, and they beat the snot out of him.
Yeah.
And when Earl finds out that these people beat that little boy within an inch of his life, he is just like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. And he like walks and sits in the barbecue like joint owned by the coach and is like, you know, come get it.
Yeah.
This is what's up.
I mean, there's two things they do that like tip Earl into not being able to not be involved. There's they kill the one guy, but he crawls out on the. I love the scene where
oh god,
he crawls out onto the football field like
half dead,
and basically like everyone's just like, well, interrupting the game, and then the coach is like, get him the fuck off my field, and you know, and I know so many. It's my field, and it's like, dude, you're just the coach, and like there's so many. That whole moment was just like, but they didn't care about the guy. They're like, get him off the field so we could keep playing football.
The guy's dying.
There's literally a guy dying on the field, and they're like, nah, get him off the field. Let's play the game.
And weren't they like tackling him?
Yeah, I love the whole sequence. I love the sequence where they're talking about it, and it's like, where did he come from? Came staggering out of the woods. He looks dead to me. They're going to give us that fumble, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they're worried about the play.
I want to know who has possession.
It's like, move, get off the field. You know, it's just like, this guy's like dying. And they're just like, get off the field.
That's how it is, though. That's how it is. And just like the overt racism, like from these towns, and it's the same.
Yeah.
And honestly, has it changed to an extent? Some. But like, bro, I'm from the deep south. I told you what my name, like the name of my high school was after.
Yeah.
You were a Confederate war hero.
I have a lot of contempt and shame. And so it's like, I am in that sense no different, I guess, than any other Southerner, because there are a lot of beautiful, wonderful, rich things about the South that I will always admire it for. But you could also say that there are some really culturally toxic stuff that are unsaid, but like, it's done. It happens.
I mean, Lady F talks about just where she's from and like the culture of that. Like, I know for a fact I am related to Bloody Bill Anderson. And if you know anything about the status of the war in Missouri and Kansas, he is more than notorious. Like, for the things he did. And let's just say he fought on the South Side. And, you know, like, and I still remember, like, growing up, like, my great-grandparents wouldn't speak the man's name. You didn't speak the man's name. Like, and just, you know, that whole, like, dynamic, because Missouri is north, but it's south. I mean, right. It's like, it's in the middle, but it's south.
You know what, JP? If you were in Tennessee, they would speak his name. They would have his ashes, and they would have a fucking flag up.
Oh, because, well, no, like, yeah, like, my great-grandmother wouldn't, but yeah, because they weren't, she was not, but yeah, because he was extreme for anything. I mean, when they finally killed him, they put his head on a spike in Kansas City, and okay, so here, just another side note as to how real this is. My old school, the band teacher for my high school today
And he used to teach science. Why? Not because like he was a qualified science teacher, because they didn't have enough teachers to teach our class.
Yeah.
It was one of the largest class, 72, that they had in recent years. And so, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, we basically got stuff like we would come into the band room for science class, and he'd be like, pop quiz, name as many elements as you can, and any element over 100 is an extra point. Okay? Dude, we were making up shit. Like, I mean, I think at the time there were only like 111 at the time, which now I think it's maybe in the 120s. I'm not sure. But like we were making up, and it's like, dude, he was anyways. So that's the kind of he posted this thing on Facebook. It was a Confederate flag. I showed this to Unruly because it's just like so it pisses me off so much. And like it's like, it said some bullshit like, don't be afraid of your heritage, post and share, like, and show that you're proud of your heritage or whatever. Yeah. And like Unruly sent like me a thing that was very prescient. He was like, all right, well, we'll show this to this dude. And it was basically saying that like, all right, dude, the Confederate War lasted 5 years. That is not a heritage. A heritage is like hundreds and hundreds of ancestors in Ireland or something. Yeah. Like Nirvana lasted longer than like your heritage. Like my emo phase in the early 2000s lasted longer than this, heritage.
The Tupac shirtless with his abs poster that was hanging in my college dorm room lasted longer than that.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's just like, so like, and it's like, so when you want to bring that shit up, don't act like you're actually proud of your great grandfather. What you're proud of is the white supremacy. Like, just fuck off. So.
All right. Well, before we go completely down that road, it's okay. No, it's very present in this book. It very much is.
I got stories, bro, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
But no, don't be sorry, because I think all of it's connected with this book. But I do want to get a little bit back to the story. Lady F did a great breakdown of like they basically pushed Earl to the point where he's like, F it. So we get the final confrontation. We really haven't seen much of the coach. Like he's been this presence in the first volume. Mm-hmm. But we get the showdown, and Earl doesn't win. So like Earl was kind of the hero of our tale, and he doesn't win. What did you think about that, Justin?
I was shocked. I mean, I didn't know where it was going, but to see how that kind of ended with him and getting beat up. I mean, this is what I like about with Jason Aaron's writing too, is how he gets you to feel certain ways about certain characters. And I know we're going to talk about the second trade later, but just like how I viewed the coach at this point was just so I mean, in my head was just like evil, like just this evilness of a dude who just ran things. And I'm like, why is the sheriff not doing more than that? Why shouldn't the sheriff be, at this point? But I mean, the sheriff was like scared, like everybody was scared. So again, just kind of going back to like, a lot of this stuff is newer to me in terms of like just the mindset that these characters had. And as you guys are breaking it down, it's definitely, it's kind of mind blowing to hear a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah, I didn't think he was going to lose. I didn't think Earl was I thought he was going to, hold out at the end.
That same coach that I told you about, he's still at my school. Oh, he's an alcoholic. All the teachers know it. And like one of my favorite teachers, she told me like, he's a good man, but he has a problem. So it's just like this guy that's drinking Jack Daniels and reviewing old tape. It happens.
Yep.
I say, we watched that man like, oh my God, he was just, but it's real. These people are real. And you know what? Jason Aaron grew up with them too. Mm-hmm. And you can tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of the matter. If you look at, I mean, I appreciated it as I was reading volume 1 that Earl lost.
Yeah.
Because because it was able to we are now, and this is kind of segue into volume 2, but volume 2 now is getting into the world of Coach Boss as well as the other people in the town. And this is now where it's like, hey, volume 1 was Walking Tall and Friday Night Lights had a baby. And now it diverges because Walking Tall, the guy wins, and he's like, cool.
Yeah.
Volume 1, he doesn't win. And so now we look at the juxtaposition of volume 2 of, okay, what do we have now with someone who literally, and I'm going to take it there because we're almost an hour into it, literally murders our main protagonist, Earl Tubbs, the guy who comes back to his town.
In front of everybody
on the
Everybody's
street
watching.
corner. So think of like the most popular person in your town or spot. This guy gets murdered right in front of it and nothing happens. And then the coach has the balls, the cojones, if you will, to show up to this guy's funeral and talk to his uncle like, hey, like, man, we don't know what happened. Like, are you freaking kidding me? You murdered this guy. And you are now no one else is at this funeral except for the uncle and the coach and his cronies. And you are the ones that murdered this guy. Like,
yeah. He has like the huevos, the hubris to assume like, these people, they ain't shit. They're not going to come up because they saw it, they know it, but it's because they're not going to do anything because they're ashamed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to get into that. There's one last thing about volume, because that's all volume 2 is. Volume 2 is about Coach Boss and how he became who he is.
Ewell Boss, I think.
But we get the reveal finally at the end of volume 1 of who Earl's been called.
Oh yeah, that was I kept wondering that.
The new Bert, his daughter Roberta, who is also in the military, and she's coming home and trying to call her dad back. So we know there's more coming when she tries to find out what happened. But volume 2, I find, was super interesting because he has that moment like where he's talking about, and he's talking after the funeral, he's talking to his lackeys about, everybody can't forget fast enough what happened. And they'll even tell themselves a story that's not what happened. Like that he fell or something. Like,
you can't get an honest.
Answer. And he's like, I don't want him to. I want him to be afraid of me. And like, he wants them afraid. And like, he wants them to, like, he goes and puts the bloody bath in the freaking restaurant and displays it. Like, he's proud of what he did.
With his jersey number from when he played.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like, so I did see something, like I read the little foreword, the introduction, and it talks about having like giving, like, didn't think, oh, he's just pure evil and wouldn't no understanding or whatever. And it's like, and this volume did that. Not for me. Like, I know this guy. Like, this guy was an asshole when he was a kid. And yeah, his circumstances sucked, but he just dove into them and became everything he claimed he hated.
He made choices.
Yes, he did.
People make choices.
Mm-hmm.
He became everything he claimed he hated that suppressed him when he was a kid. He became the worst version of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. Like, I remember reading this, and then I reread volume 2, and what you're talking about is the intro is from Ryan Cahill or whatever, who's a NFL player for the Panthers, and now he lives out in LA and is like an owner of the women's MLS team out there in LA. But what's funny is like he's like, I sympathize with Coach. And I'm like, I don't sympathize with him. I understand his backing, but I'm like, you're still a douche. Like, I don't sympathize with you at all.
No. No.
Like, a little backstory that is like, so we're missing a big component of this is that, Ewell Boss as a kid, so Coach Boss, well, his name was Ewell, right? And
Euless. So that because they're calling
yeah,
Euless,
that's the first problem. Like you name your kid
Euless.
Like
Okay, so
that's a horrible name.
Euless because
That's
his
like
dad
naming
was
your kid
named
Justin.
Olus.
yeah, he was Euless.
Like
He's
Heard
Euless.
Olus, what's their last name again? Boss. So Olus Boss and then Yule Boss. Or
Euless. Because they used to call him useless, which of course,
Right.
typical.
Right. He wants so badly to be on the football team because that's what every boy wants to be in a small town because that's how you get chicks and that's like a social status, right?
Yeah.
And he sucks. He's this little weakling and he's just like scrawny and the coaches are like, get the F off my field. You're never going to be.
Also get the F off my field because of you talked about at the beginning, the family he comes from.
Because your dad is nothing but.
Because your dad's trash, you're trash.
Right.
Yes,
like,
you're trash.
Very much
your lineage is trash.
Yeah.
You and yours is trash.
And will always be trash. Doesn't matter what you do. Like
Right. And so it's like you're just destined to this fate because of your surname, which is very much a thing. And like he just basically gets the beat out of him day after day. And then finally there is a character. He's the ball boy, but his name's Big. And Big is an elderly black gentleman who is blind and he actually knows the game really well. He knows it Daredevil style. Yeah. And it's like he's blind, but he can hear the breathing and the voice pitches and the way the like certain people are positioned. And he's like, he can tell when things or anticipate when moves are going to start coming. All right. And so because of that, what he did is like he kind of took this guy under his wing because he saw he had a lot of, piss and fight in him, boss, the Euless boss, and helped him get better. And so he did a really good job. And then he runs home one day, I don't know, to tell his dad that, oh, Dad, I made the team and I did some tackles, whatever you say to your dad. And his dad, who's a crazy POS that does drugs and steals and just no good, like. And it's like this kid comes home day after day, and it's like his dad's so high and strung out with people, he always pulls a gun on him because he doesn't know who he is. Yeah. And it's like the feeling that you're going home, that safety, here's my safe space. And then it's like, yo, who are you? And it's the kid's just like, Dad, it's me, and it's so sad. But, one day it's not actually his dad. It's a dude looking for his dad because his dad is stolen. All right.
Yeah.
And, Euless, because he's gotten stronger and he's doing better at football. He's like, all right, well, go find him, beat him. I don't care. Just leave me out of it. And they're like, we don't think that's going to be, and, anyways, like the guy shoots this kid in the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was rough. Right after he made the team, right?
He finally made the team, was gonna play. And after all the work he did.
I was just feeling so bad for him at this time.
I wasn't.
Here's the thing. It's hard to feel bad for him when you know what he's already done.
Well, right.
Well, and he wasn't exactly he was kind of an a-hole anyway, as a kid. Yeah, it sucked, but he was not making the best of his circumstances. And just I love the line where he finally convinces the old black man, and now I can't remember his name. Big to help him. And it's like Big's asking, what do you want? What happens? What do you see? And he's like, I hit him so hard he dies. The only thing is he just wanted. Even then, he was just wanting to take his rage out on somebody else. It wasn't really about football. It was about having the opportunity to hurt people.
And to be noticed by the people that he needed to be emotionally supported, but weren't.
And Biggs is like, I can work with that. That is just pure anger and aggression. Mm-hmm. Even then.
It's in vinegar, that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, that's exactly what they say. So
yeah,
but, I mean. So we see his story. He finally makes, all this goes down. His dad basically leaves completely. He basically gets raised by bigs. He makes the team, and then the coach basically screws him out of a chance to play beyond that. Because of his name. Like, what do you think of that? Like that the way that all played out. Go ahead, Greg.
That was the only part where I actually had sympathy for Boss. Like when it was like the dude was the best of the best, and he got literally shut out because of his name. And I mean, but the truth of the matter, again, it goes back to that small town vibe. Like, I mean, I played in middle school sports where I didn't get a starting role literally because a kid who started before me, his name had prominence in the town. Yeah. And I'm not saying like I was like, I literally changed the trajectory of my sporting career. In middle school, I played basketball and I was on the third string in basketball. And we would beat the first string regularly in practice, in scrimmages. And we never got to play because the coach played the players that had a name. And it also didn't matter because our starters also beat everyone else that we played in the league. And so when the coach was like, I was like, I'm quitting. He's like, why are you quitting? I'm like, I'm going to wrestle. And he was like, why? I was like, because you never played me. Like, it was that mindset of like when a coach screws you over because of your talent, you know, like, man, that resonated. And that was the only part where I'm like, I felt like with Boss, I was like, ooh, I feel you for that because you were you put the effort in to be better than most of the players on your team. And then your coach was a tool and was like, oh, I'm not going to tell any college scouts about you, or I'm going to basically, when they call about you, I'm going to say, don't worry about him. Like that resonated to a degree with me. Doesn't justify what he did, but I was like, it gave me a sliver of like, ooh.
Yeah, I think earlier I said like I didn't sympathize with him at all, and that's not true. Like his circumstances sucked,
right?
But his choices is where like my sympathy ended. Like he got a bunch of crap thrown at him, but he still had choices to make, and his choices are where like that's why I don't sympathize with him, who he becomes, because he made all those choices. Justin, you've been pretty quiet for a while. You've let us small towners kind of dominate here.
No, dude.
Sorry, buddy.
On his backstory, on the backstory of Coach Boss and what he goes through as a kid and how he became who he is.
Well, like I said, I mean, my mind's like, again, it's blown. I'm learning a lot just from like what you guys have explained and the viewpoints of this. And so, but for how I read this and how I initially took it based on what I knew or didn't know, I did still feel, his circumstances sucked. I mean, I do know that, it's all about, the decisions that you make as you grow up and the things, but like, I feel like, and I took like a week in between when I read the first trade versus the second trade. So I think that also may have played a part in that. As I dive into this like second issue, almost not forgetting, but just like, I don't know, my emotions towards this character was like, oh, this poor kid. Like I was just so focused on the kid as a kid and what he was going through and his parents or his dad treating him the way he did. And then even like the other players not supporting him, even when he started doing good, like it was almost like, it's weird to say, like this almost like you picture this motivational thing where he's like, I'm not giving up. I'm not getting off the field. I'm not quitting, as big as like, training him. And it's almost like kid, don't quit. It's like, keep going, keep at it. And then you feel bad again, as you're bringing up, like, the coach ends up like basically just destroying him all based on his name. Again, I didn't realize it was that serious with like names either. That's another big thing too, from my perspective, where it's like, you literally can get like looked at it in a certain way just because of the history of what either your dad did or your family did or something that
your cousin is like your granddaddy was the head of this park.
I haven't went like Greg. I haven't been to a sporting event of my hometown in 15, 20 years. I guarantee you, if I went back tomorrow, or this fall and winter, and went to a basketball game, and I looked at the roster, at least 4 or 5 names I would recognize and know. Last name. Not first names, last names.
Because they're usually the kids of people that you went to school with or something.
They're probably kids I went to school with. Yeah. And it's, and those people are still there. And
you're begetting others and begetting and begetting and begetting.
Yes, they just keep cycling through.
You have got the sports teams for infinity with the names you want because they're just staying, bro.
The last names are always the same. And they cycle, they cycle through because you got to have so many years. In some cases, not as many years as you would think, but it's between rounds. But we are talking about small towns. So we get through his high school. He finally gets to play. He gets screwed up and doesn't get to go to college. And then we get the backstory of basically he just to stay related to football, he becomes the ball boy, but he's plotting the whole way, and basically makes a deal with the town criminal, the town boss,
the guy who shot him in the foot.
The guy who shot him in the foot.
He makes a deal with the guy who shot him in the foot when he was about to start his first football game.
The deal is, if he kills his own dad, well, basically, I think it was really about bringing his dad to him, but he just kills him. He murders his own father, to get rid of that pain in the butt, and they make him the football coach and fire the other football coach.
Just walks right on the field.
The principal comes out to fire the other football coach. Well, certain people said that this is going to happen, so you're fired.
Certain prominent alumni.
Prominent alumni. I love that line.
This is
and the guy was nervous.
It's the saying money talks.
I don't think it's even money because, Justin says, the guy is nervous that, the principal's
he's like, I gotta fire you. Yeah,
and when the coach hears the name, he's like, oh, he's like, yeah, I'll go.
You hired that POS,
Right.
Yeah. And this is the moment, not even just him murdering his father, but when all sympathy ends is he gets his dream. He's the football coach. They're getting ready to go out there the first time, and Big is talking to him. He's like, when we step on the field, what is it that we's becoming? And he's like, football coaches. That's all I'm interested in. And Big's like, all right, that's what I needed to. And before he can even finish, that's what I need to hear. Ain't nothing ever come between me and that field again. Nothing in Noel. Mosel's going to be a problem, which was the criminal who just got him the job.
Right.
I can already tell. He's already
he wants to kill this guy that just got him a
job. And
cold-blooded, bro.
And I couldn't believe how dumb his little lackey was. The first time you kill somebody, he's like, it ain't my first time. After he killed the guy. And
after he killed the guy in Volume 1, he's like, that's not my first time. It's like, really? You think Coach Boss hasn't killed someone by now?
Yeah.
He's 80 years old.
First person it was his dad.
Yeah. First person he ever killed was his father. It's
that's nuts.
And you can tell there's been probably several since. And the best thing is he basically comes out and his father has a drop on him, and he basically tells him this sad sob story to get him to I need your help, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, yeah, family's going to stick together. And then he shoots him in the back.
The minute he turns his back, yeah.
The moment he turns his back, he pops him in the back. I mean, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No sympathy for the devil.
No sympathy for the devil. That is,
he's kind of a brute.
So what do you guys I feel like we've covered we can circle back to final thoughts on the story if there's anything you guys think we missed. I want to talk about the art a little bit. What do you guys think of the art in this? And this time I'm going to start with Justin because I haven't started with him very much. I've let the other two ramble first. So what did you think of the art in these 2 volumes?
So I think that it wasn't anything that necessarily jumped out to me at first until I really started to get into the story. And I feel like seeing more and more of it, it went really well with the story, to the point where I was enjoying everything about it. So just from like it's like kind of dark and eerie. I mean, some of the colors are very bland throughout this whole book, and it just kind of fits that mood. Especially that second trade. So I just thought I think it's well done, and the artist Jason Latour. I'm not very familiar with his work, but
he's a writer too. I don't know that he's done a lot of other art.
Oh, really?
But yeah, because he writes, but like, I mean, some of these.
I'd be curious to know if Jason Latour has any type of background similar to Jason Aaron. Or
where were you saying?
He was raised in North Carolina.
Latour. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
Latour.
probably a fairly similar, maybe not quite as extreme as Alabama, but not far off.
They're all their own flavor of crazy.
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very like rough and unfinished and raw. I feel like those are kind of the words I think of when I think about the art, and they all fit the book.
Yep.
Like in the story so well.
I get this blood and dust and heat.
Yeah.
That's what I get. It's gritting in my mouth.
Gritty and
absolutely. Yep.
And the gnarly drawing, I think it fits the ugliness of these behaviors, the ugliness of the tale.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a perfect pairing, really.
Yep.
I think this guy really does his best to make these guys characters and emote with them. And it turns out I love it.
Yeah, I like how the flashbacks too were all painted red, like throughout.
Yeah,
that was always
the
just an
whole book
ongoing thing.
the whole book is red,
red,
gray, and black. Like that's the color scheme.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's these every time it's a violent act, usually it's red.
Yeah.
And most of his flashbacks, well, when we say his, but both of Boss's and Earl's flashbacks, most of them are red.
Red, yeah. Definitely.
Because they both experienced a lot of violence in their past.
Well, without literally spoiling anything for all you guys, I know I'm the only one that's read volumes 3 and 4. You guys all mentioned about Jason Latour, who is a writer. He also does the art, obviously, on this book. Yeah. But in volumes 3 and volumes 4, I assume probably he'll do it in volume 5 too. They actually have it where he writes one of the issues of volumes 3 and 4. In both of those, he just writes one of the issues and then someone else does the artwork for it. So it's not even Jason Aaron. Yeah. But it's one of those backstories that you get to see a little bit more about characters. I think the artwork really works well with this because there is that it's literally red, black, gray tones throughout this entire book.
Tan, beiges.
Yeah, like it's all really, the tone is red. Yeah. And I think it's very ominous of like the story that they're telling and creating.
Yep. I mean, like the covers of the book are this red overlay, and it's very like fitting of what's inside.
And if you flip through volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, it's all shades of red that base off of it. So I think it's very fitting. I think there's a little bit of, I think they stick with the red color scheme because of the Confederate flag. I think you stick with it with the South, with South Carolina football is red. Alabama Crimson Tide is red. Arkansas is red. Georgia is red. All the Southern football teams are very red.
There's a lot of red. Yeah.
And it's like football's in your blood.
Right. Yeah. And it's in your blood. So you take the blood.
Sometimes you got to spill the blood for the sport.
You take the blood of the book, the narrative that they're telling. You take the blood of your colors, your Crimson Tide, your Georgia. You take all those colors that people resonate with. I'm telling you what, gang, Jason Aaron grew up. He grew up in the South. I don't even know if he did, but I know he did because reading this book and knowing how he's like, he literally had to tell Jason Latour, I'm sure, is like, listen, our undertones of this book are literally going to be read.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, talking about that, the blood, I think, has a whole lot to do with it, because that's one of Boss's lines all the time. The blood is worth it. Like, to play football or to be the coach, the blood is worth it. He keeps saying that over and over again. And we get to the end of volume 2, and the kind of the big reveal is after he killed Tubbs in front of the whole town, like he goes and he can't find Big.
Oh yeah,
Big's late for practice, and he thinks
he's sleeping.
And Big has committed suicide, and his note is the blood ain't worth it. Like he'd finally pushed Big too far.
Yep.
Or ain't worth the blood, and and that kind of is the end of volume 2. Other than we get Bert headed home.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that.
And so to me, this is what I thought. She looks like she is biracial.
Yeah,
she is.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, all right, does Biggs have like a daughter or something that Earl like hooked up with or something? I don't know, but that's kind of what I'm feeling.
Well, that would be. I mean, I doubt there's anything that direct, but like.
I know, but it's all I have to work with.
Yeah, but I do think that it's very clear that she's biracial, and I think that's an important part of the story of
very
in this town,
super very.
Earl got out.
Because
Big
Boss or Ulyss, Boss, he got protected when he was on the team from the mean ass white kids by the African American kids, and the only reason why was because Biggs took a liking to him and was helping him with his skills and getting better at football. And they're like, we don't care about your ass, dude. So don't get it twisted.
You do anything to Big, we'll do we'll finish what they started.
Yeah. If you do anything to hurt that man, we'll kill your ass or something. We'll beat the S out of you.
And so it'll be interesting to see that side of town's reaction to Big
taking his own life.
Yeah. Because clearly that's related to Coach.
He was a good man. Everybody recognized him as sort of the what is it called? The ethical or moral mind.
The moral compass.
The moral compass. Yeah.
Who has just ended his life.
Well, and you see that as soon as Boss shot his dad in volume 2 to get the job of head coach, right before they run out, Biggs is like, what is this about? This is not what I signed up for. He's like, no, it's all about football. And that's where the blood is worth it is. Yeah. And you see that then very shortly in the next 2 issues, I think, of volume 2, where it's where Biggs realized holy crap, what did I create? Because I took this scrawny, nothing, no good white kid who was white trash, and I'm making him
he's a sociopath.
Not only the star of the team, then I'm creating him to where he feels confident enough to be the coach of the to do what he has to do to freaking murder his own father to be the head coach because he loves football that much. Good golly. Oh,
but is it about football? I think it's about power.
It's about power.
It's about
not
power.
about football,
power. Yeah, absolutely.
It's about feeling respect. Yeah,
it's about status
and power.
Because the big wig in town is always the coach.
Yeah, and it goes back to his whole thing about he doesn't want him to forget, and he's flaunting what he did, because he wants him to remember, because he wants that fear and the quote unquote respect, or that he thinks it is.
This is the social hierarchy of small town.
That's why he puts
he puts it in
the barbecue shop.
Yeah,
because he's like, listen, I don't care. You aren't gonna do anything about it.
No.
Yeah. So I liked it.
Yeah.
Well, final thoughts. That's where I was going. So, Lady Fantastic, what are your final thoughts on this before we,
Dude, hit close to home, and man, for every little crazy story in there, there's a real one, and so I really recognized and resonated with some of a lot of this. So
yeah. Justin, your final thoughts. I feel like we kind of overwhelmed you.
I'm a sponge tonight. I really was taking a lot of this in because this was eye opening for me, and I actually kind of makes me want to reread it and just kind of recognize certain things that from what you guys have mentioned here tonight. That can hit home a little, can hit a little harder now that I have a little bit more of a background of the idea that some of this stuff is not as far fetched as what I may have looked at it to be in the beginning of my first time reading through. So it's just interesting because I'm curious what other people who might not have any knowledge to this either from the South, how someone else has taken a book like this. I know that this is I feel like I don't hear too many people talking about this book, but for those who I have heard talk about it, obviously I've heard really good things, and that's one of the things that got me going in this. But I would certainly recommend it to other people. And again, kind of knowing what I know now, I almost would, I would tell them certainly to check this out, this video out, maybe after you read it the first go around. But
you might want to read it first.
Read it first and then read. But it kind of makes me want to go back and read it. So I actually might do that before I jump into 3 and 4, which I certainly want to do as well at some point. But I definitely like the series overall.
Nice.
Yep.
Greg, final thoughts.
I really love the series. Again, I hadn't heard anything about Southern Bastards. I picked it up at Half Price Bookstore. I love Volume 1. I was like, this hits home, but I'm also like, whoo. Jason Aaron's can write. Now, this is where it's like, this is a newbie of me because I hadn't read his Thor run. I hadn't read most of what Jason Aaron had done before I read this. So like this
your introduction to him. Thanks.
Right. So like this was my first exposure really to Jason Aaron. And I'm like, I really dug what he did and what he brought out of this story.
He's a layerer. He likes to layer.
Yes. Yeah. It's because and you see that again without giving anything away with Volume 1 and 2. He literally has Volume 1 where it's an entire character of Earl Tubbs. And then he's like, cool, we're going to wipe that character out. And we're still going to have Volume 2 now where you're still going to be super invested and devoted. And he does that throughout the series to a degree. Yeah. And that just shows you the level that he writes. The realism is there. The art in the book pairs so well with it. It just is one of those reads where like you're like this is such a train wreck. There's no way it can be. I'm so glad I'm on a panel now with Justin, who didn't grow up in this, where he's kind of like watching this like, holy buckets, this is real. Like y'all like this isn't a
real for real, bro.
Like this actually like stuff like this happens. Like and
I thought my mind was blown, man.
Lady F and I are like, y'all preach. Like this is real life.
I've got some tragedies, dude. Like, it's just crazy.
It's very Donny Cates God Country-esque with like the relationship of father, son, grandfather. The artwork is fantastic. If you're watching this still after we've talked about for an hour and 10 minutes and you haven't read it, go someone post, like why are you listening to us?
Why are you watching us if you haven't read
it? Someone posted in the chat that it's available, I think, on Comixology, at least Volume 1.
Yeah.
Volume 1 is free.
Yeah.
And tune in because this is such a good read. I love it. And it's funny as JP was like, hey, do you want to do Southern Bastards? I was like, yes. And my ego was like, oh, he saw that I did a video where I did a recipe from a Southern Bastard. He hadn't seen it. He literally was just like, I need someone else to fill the slot. And I'm like, yes, I read all 4 volumes. Like, I'm in. I thought he watched my content where I'm like, Southern Bastards is great. Jason Aaron's is awesome. His mom Betty makes great fried apple pie. And Jason's like, nah. Like, I literally just like, I needed someone to fill the thought, so I reached out to you. Cool, you read more than I have. Awesome.
Yeah.
Your name popped up on Instagram, and
like when I reached out, I will admit that. But I
did the @ on my phone, and like I went A. There was no A's that popped up, so I hit B. It's like, oh, bearded. Oh, cool. That's bearded.
No. My final thoughts on this, and there was a question. John asked if there was plans for more. My understanding is there is. He's talked about it a couple times, and he still has plans for going back to this. Greg talked about it before. He thought Volume 5 was coming sooner than later, but we'll see. He's been a very busy guy, I know. So, like, working on other stuff, but hopefully, yeah. Amazon Prime is.
Read Jason Aaron's God of Thunder. Do yourself a favor.
So, yes, like I think the Omni of his Thor run is gonna start, like the first Omni, which is God of Thunder and stuff, is gonna come out soon.
So Gore, I've heard about Scalped, and I heard that it's about basically like a drug cartel or syndicate that operates on an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
There's this comic shop that's like just down south from me that has it for sale for like $29.99. I'm wondering maybe should I go?
If you like this, I think so. Because most people, like, interestingly enough, most people that I shouldn't say most. Several people I've talked to are like Gore, enjoyed Scout more than Southern Bastards. Enjoyed Southern Bastards. So
yeah, I mean,
it's definitely going to be on my list after I get caught up on this. So
if you guys don't know, in the South there are also a lot of Native American tribes.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends was part Cherokee and part Creek or Muskogee, and you learn stories about the reservation that you didn't realize. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. They didn't live on one, but like their family back in Oklahoma did, and I was
also anyway. Lady F. If Gore Vidal tells you to read something, you read it. Like that's Gore's at that level.
Gore
like Gore's like, hey, this is
well-read person in the community, which is a lot.
I mean, that's from his talks with me. I mean, I've gathered he's a dude encyclopedia.
He's like literally read everything.
When I do my show with John and Gore agrees with my,
do you feel good
on a movie over John? I'm like, suck it, John. Gore, like, like I don't care what anyone else in the chat says. If Gore agrees with me,
that means you're right.
Yep. That's like Gore's person. Like, if I was writing a comic book and I wanted to validate my comic book by like having recommendations, it would be Gore recommends this comic book. Like, Gore's like, this is a 5 out of 5 read.
Gore Vidal approved.
Yes.
Yes, so my very best friend as a kid, like I heard stories, man, and it's like I wonder if Aaron, is either got some Native American or like has family or someone he knew, because there's those stories too, dude. I mean, it's just a lot of subcultures in America that are dark and forgotten about.
All right, well, we are at the hour and a half. I don't know. My final thoughts are just, this is fantastic. I'm a big Jason Aaron fan. I thought this was fantastic. It exceeded my expectations. I'm looking forward to where it goes. It is not uplifting. Like, if you're looking for something fun and light to read, this ain't it. But if you're
great introspective.
Yes. And if you grew up in a small town in the South or Midwest, you probably know some of these people. Like, you really do. And so, yeah, I give it a really high recommend. With that, what do you guys got coming up? What do you guys want to pitch that you got coming up? Lady F, you got anything coming up this week?
I don't know. Yes, tomorrow on Not Near Mint at 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing things about comics like we do. Other than that, I don't really know. I'll be around probably Friday, Saturday, doing something with Rob, just showing off nerdy books.
No.
But yeah, I'm pretty whorish in the community. I'm promiscuous with my streams. I like to visit.
Well, I appreciate that you came to visit us. How about that?
My first time.
Justin, what do you got coming up, man?
So I have Tag Team Thursday coming up on Thursday, and then I think I'm gonna be over on Bearded's channel. We're figuring out the time, right? Bearded Thursday, Friday-ish, something like that.
It'll be pre-recorded, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, but there's that, and then Comic Collector Origins. I have Off-White Tim, who was actually in the chat earlier here today. So he'll be my next guest up for that on Saturday, and then actually we're gonna be breaking down me and Read Across the Stars, Victoria, her and I, along with our friend Abby from Abby Reads. We are talking about the first 6 issues of Sweet Tooth on Saturday, 4:00. So it'll be over on my channel as well. We're going to compare it to the show and things like that. So a lot of fun things coming up. But thanks, JP, for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Always
Same. Thank
welcome,
you, JP.
always. Greg, what you got coming up? Justin gave away some of it, but
Man, what do I not have coming up? So tomorrow night I'll drop some edited content. I'm Thursday night. I'm on Robbie Pop Culture Philosopher's channel. We're doing something. I don't know what we're doing, but he's like, "You want to be on my show?" I'm like, "Sure." So we're gonna do something on his show on Thursday night. Friday night, I'm usually on Will the Beast, aka Hero and the Kid, but we're off this Friday. But I'll have another Name That character with my wife. We'll drop that. I'll tease what Justin said. So Justin is going to be a part of a group. I did an episode by myself called Who You Gonna Cast, where we basically have to recast movies. And I did the Justice League. If I was going to recast the Justice League, who would I cast? So I'm going to have Justin. I'm going to have my boy Manny from Tomorrow Cinema. John's Comics with Kids is in the chat. And we're going to talk about if we had to recast the X-Men team for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I got this. I'm going to do it real quick. So just for me, because I'm not going to be on there.
Go for it.
Number 1, Storm, Angela Bassett. Number 2, Magneto, Richard Gere. Number 3, Jean Grey. I actually really liked the Famke Janssen. Wolverine. I'm cool with Hugh or whatever. Dude, what's his name? Professor X. He was born like Jean-Luc. What's his name? He would be perfect for the guy that is X.
Yeah,
he is perfect. He was born for that role.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was.
Jubilee. Like Demi Lovato or some shit.
I love it. I love it. Like you're driving like the fact that you said Richard Gere and my knowledge of Richard Gere was First Night. I'm like, I'm old and
but that white hair, he is my perfect Magneto, and he's got that chiseled face. Like I am totally. And Angela Bassett was Storm, bro.
Back in the day, she would have been a fantastic.
When Stella got her groove back, that was Storm, man.
So I mean, I have and then Monday nights I drop interviews. You can find me on John's Comics with Kids. We're gonna do our drink and movie show that hasn't happened in 3 months.
Nice.
Nice.
I'm speaking it back into existence that it's gonna happen again. Because I want John to acknowledge me as a friend again.
There you go.
Also, Justin dropped a post on his Instagram very recently about a comic that he was digging that I commented on. And I'm actually going to be dropping an interview with that creator of that comic on Monday as well. So go check out No Good Comics to see what comic he dropped that then I said I really dig and I support it full-heartedly because that means I'm interviewing that creator. So I got a lot of stuff. So just find me. Beer Comic Bro. You can find me.
So
Nice.
coming up on my channel, not sure how much of my weekend stuff I'm going to get done. I'm going to be out basically the rest of the week. I am going to try to get at least the look back done for Saturday. And then I don't know what else is going to happen Sunday. We'll see. I got some family stuff this weekend. And then next indie show will be next week. We're doing Invincible again. We're up to issues 25 through 35, hardcover volume 3, that I will be discussing next week with Unruly, Daymares, and I always blank on one person on my panel. It's amazing. I always blank on one person. Commissary of mine, Kirk, is gonna.
Nice.
We'll be talking more Invincible next week, so looking forward to that. And yeah, that's about all I got coming up. So I want to thank everybody for hanging with us for an hour and 35 minutes. So we had a lot to say. We had 2 volumes to cover, but I think this was fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed. I want to thank Lady F, Justin, No Good Comics, Bearded Comic Bro. You guys were a fantastic panel, and I am looking forward to when we discuss volumes 3 and 4 here in a few weeks sometime. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you guys for being on. Thanks everybody for hanging out in the chat. And yes, Jeffrey, you're very welcome that we didn't block you.
I tried to block you, Jeffrey.
All right.
But JP was like, no.
Later, everybody.